Hello and welcome to the Animation Communication Podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join our host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Riddle of Lightning, Riddle or Josh, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to show support by giving a like, follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word, and thank you for being part of our community. This episode contains some mild adult language.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Animation Communication. We're here still doing the things. So I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP if you're new. This is our podcast. We talk about animation and film and whatever the intro said. The intro says it better than I can, essentially. So I'm KP, and as always, or I guess always recently, I have my co-host Riddle. So Riddle, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Welcome to episode 69. Nice.
So we'll be discussing Steven Universe stuff. If you've like Steven Universe, I don't know what the fandom is like since the show's been over, at least for a couple of years, but we'll get to that. So with us this week is our guest, JakeNeutron. Jake, why don't you tell the internet who you are and what you do and why you're neat?
Hey, I'm JakeNeutron. I'm a multimedia artist, so I do animations, music, etc., etc. Currently, right now, I am in my Friday Night Funkin' era, so that's what I work on every day. But I used to...
What is a Friday Night Funk, if people don't know what that is?
It's Friday Night Funkin'. It's that, that cool little indie rhythm game that has a really huge modding community and is constantly on fire.
It's DDR for your fingers.
I
Exactly.
just see it and I think of, what was that? The Mystery Skulls thing? Because it has kind of the same kind of, keyframing. Yeah.
I think, most character idols, literally, they're using the same rules of the bop.
What's the bop?
The little bop that all the characters in Mystery Skulls are always doing.
Oh, the little head bop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, Riddle. So yeah, we head bop animation, and so we're gonna jump to the news. Anyway, so thanks Jake for being here, and we're going to talk about Steven Universe in a second. But I guess we'll just get to the news because of this recording. This show is obviously not about politics, but, it's not been a great week.
It has not.
Yeah, Roe versus Wade got overturned officially in the Supreme Court, and everyone's kind of has mixed feelings about it. So everyone in my circle, at least, is pretty bummed. So that tells you a little bit about me, but everyone's just exhausted. So hopefully we can talk about some cartoons and distract ourselves from our problems. So, Riddle, what story would you like to do first?
Oh no, new stories. Well, first story, it might be a little bit of alarming. There's going to be a new CG Caillou that's being reanimated. It's going to be a new 52 11-minute sections. Caillou, there's the story of a young family on PBS. Let's see. It ran for famously over 200 episodes. It's very, very long running, and it has a bit of a a culture around it. It's the bald kid with cancer. That's always been the meme around it. It's still going, and they're going to just go at it again.
Are they remaking the old episodes, or are they making actual new content?
I believe they're making new content, new 52 11-minute sections, and then 5 44-minute sections that are going to be specials.
God.
Okay, and I guess if Jake, you want to jump in on this too, can you guys explain a little bit about the meme culture with Caillou? Because I always found him not incredibly annoying, but I know the internet hates him, and I don't really understand why. Besides, he's just annoying, I guess.
I always thought it was it was because in so many episodes he is so bratty.
Yeah, he's just a little brat.
And he sometimes gets what he wants, even though his behavior was awful. And I know for parents, it's because with kids content, even if you have characters acting awful and you show the consequences for that, kids aren't going to. That's not going to sink into kids immediately, so they imitate that stuff. So if you have a character like Caillou being a complete brat on screen, your kids might imitate it. People hated that.
Oh yeah.
So it's like the opposite of Bluey as far as just,
Oh, yeah.
having a really not good, child role model.
Mm-hmm. So them bringing that back, ooh.
I mean, I guess I'm surprised too, because I thought everyone was like, when they announced they were when they announced they were going to stop making I'll get it.
Yeah.
When they announced that they were going to end Caillou, there we go, I said it. Like, the internet was very ding-dong, the witch was deady, so I'm surprised that, I guess the core market is still there or something businessy or something like that.
They're a multinational corporate entity, like with 21 different languages and billions of hours of watch time. It's quite ridiculous how much Caillou has proliferated.
Oh god. We're never gonna escape him.
Well, I think he'll eventually fade out, as if what you guys are describing is true. I think eventually we'll be like, hey, my kid likes Caillou, but then it turns into my problem. Like, can't we watch something where, the children actually learn something about being good children and not just this kid?
Yeah. Come on, Bluey. Come on, parents.
Is it ever explained why he's bald? Is that just like, can he just not grow hair,
He's Caillou.
Probably just can't grow hair.
He's Caillou.
He's a little baby.
Little baby boy.
Baby that's been 4 years old for over 21 years.
Yep, time passes differently in the Matrix, I guess. So, all right. So I guess that will be a thing that happens. Riddle, you're gonna watch all 52 episodes, right?
Yes, I'll review them just for you. I'll suffer. This will be my cross to bear.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'll survive. Speaking of bald people,
what a great transition.
You're welcome. The odds one's out. The little character, the little round white blob man. He's going to have his own animation series on Netflix coming at the end of the year.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be called Oddballs. He made an announcement on his YouTube. I think this is a pretty good thing because we had Smiling Friends, and that's another YouTuber, Zach Hadel, and so we're giving YouTubers with talent the resources to make their own shows instead of like having Annoying Orange, and I think Fred also had his own series. Like those were like very corporate controlled, and then they turned out like just awful.
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest difference between the Fred thing and this thing is like it's actual artists and animators who are getting these shows and not just someone with a camera.
Yep. I mean,
Zach, his voice.
Well, Zach is an animator. He's more of a comedian than an animator, so he's not like, he's not putting pencil to paper. He's just writing the stories and, just giving YouTubers the creative control to create the things they like. I think it's a good thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there was talk for a while for like the Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared to get its own series as well. That's kind of been meandering forever, but I think that's more independent.
Didn't they just announce that?
Oh no, they just announced something that they're gonna like on Channel 4 in Britain or something. They're gonna do a Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared special.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it in my feed, and for those who don't know, Anthony, the editor that was in with me 5 or 10 episodes ago talking about the team, we went to MomoCon this year, and I was a guest at MomoCon. It was cool. But he actually cosplayed as the clock character from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And not a lot of people got it, but, there was one little girl who was really excited and asked if he was charging for pictures.
Well, I know that this is like slightly off topic, but also on topic. I was at MomoCon too, and I missed your panel, but I think I went into that panel room sometime afterwards, and there was just one of them. Because were you handing out some poster type thing? Because we found one on the floor that was just like under someone's seat, and I was like, "Look, guys,
free
merch." It's relic.
I think it's in my backpack somewhere."
Oh yeah, well, it's not relatively new thing we do for conventions, but during conventions we have things that we give away for people. So that's probably what you found. So I guess for those listening, if you ever want to meet me at a con, so I was vending too, Jake. So you could have found me there. But anyway, so
I did spot you, but I was afraid to say hi.
Well, now I'm forcing you to say hi. So hi. But scary. Yeah, so. A lot of times, so I do conventions a lot, and I'm trying to, up it to do conventions because I like doing conventions and I like teaching kids and, adults about art and how to get into art if they don't know how to art. But a lot of times people don't know who I am, and they're just like, what the fuck is an I Love Kim Possible a lot? Did you voice Kim Possible? So in order to kind of help with that, but also encourage genuine interactions with people, and not just being like, hey, buy some shit, guys, which I do that too. I give out coloring pages, so I have a couple of different coloring pages options, and I'll probably have more the next con. So I think for MomoCon I had My Little Pony, so it was just my OC in Discord. It's just like the line art, and kids can color it. I have like a Disney Princess version, and then I had a Rick and Morty version, and then I have a Harley Quinn one, but the Harley Quinn one I'm going to retire because, it's kind of a hard sell if you don't already like Harley Quinn, I guess, for some reason for kids. They're just like, who is this character? So, but anyway, it's just a way for me to engage and kind of start talking to people, but also you get a prize for, saying hi, and then I give them out at panels too if people, want them at panels. But anyway, good marketing tip for people who are interested in that. But I don't know, we were talking about, but yeah, MomoCon was neat, and Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is coming out with new content, I guess.
Hooray.
Hooray. Oh yeah, oddballs.
Hooray.
Oddballs.
Oh yeah, oddballs. So, I was just going to point out that I think it's really good because, I think the industry is slowly being more accepting. It's still got a long way to go because we're dealing with a bunch of old boomers who are like, I don't know what a YouTuber is. What does that mean? But basically, YouTubers in general are, proving their credibility by, making YouTube content. So, like, I know we work hard on our YouTube content, so I think it's a good strategy, and there's already an audience, and there's already a way to market the thing versus just coming up with something new. So as a business strategy, situation thing, it's a little bit less of a risk than just, hoping that an independent creator with their independent idea, works out, which it can work out and can not work out. That's how business works. But I think it's an interesting, an interesting development, and I would eventually like to break in professionally as a showrunner. That's kind of my end goal right now. So, hey, Disney, if you're listening to this podcast, hit me up. I will give you my resume.
Give us a show.
Give us a show.
I know I saw the teaser trailer for Oddballs, and I thought it looked pretty cute. I know that I feel like it's definitely aimed towards like kids and maybe like families that might watch that kind of stuff together. Because it's still very much like
He's your storytime YouTuber, so he's for everyone.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't expect it going any other way. Like I feel like that's like this is the perfect direction for something like that. I might be a little bit confused about some of the art direction choices because the Onward's Out's character himself looks very different from all the other characters that were showed in like the poster and teaser trailer. Like one literally looks like a human, and then
he's not unmodeled. We got to redo the
Maybe they're trying to do for that mixed media kind of thing that they're doing at for Smiling Friends.
Maybe that would make sense. Mixed art styles.
And Riddle, you know more about this than I do. Are they still producing Are they still producing Smiling Friends, or are they kind of one and done? Because I know it came out during the pandemic, so I'm not sure.
Right.
As far as that.
No clue.
No clue?
I think everything's locked up tight under NDA right now until they have a trailer.
Well, unless there is no trailer.
Unless there is no trailer. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Okay, I was just curious if you knew, because I did really enjoy that one episode that I found. So. Yep,
it's successful, so I don't know why they wouldn't.
But I think, before we move on, I just wanted to point out that I think it's an interesting take because for these streaming services to try to get YouTubers to do YouTube things, because you run a risk of the YouTuber themselves not knowing how to be a professional, essentially, which, happens sometimes. Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of people who don't know how to manage their time, as we were talking about a little bit before we started recording. But, I think at the same time, you already have built an advertisement for it. And if you're not Disney Plus and you're not Netflix and you don't really have to if you're a company that does have to worry about, standing out comparatively to those, those streaming services, I think it's a smart business decision to, invest in someone who already has people interested in them.
Yeah, but it can also go like backfire on the YouTuber. Like if you remember Aaron Hansen in Game Jam, that Game Jam completely fell apart. They wanted to make like a game show about making games, and it was like sponsored like aggressively by Mountain Dew, and they wanted to change it to be like a drama show, like The Bachelor or something, instead of something entertaining.
With Mountain Dew.
Yeah, with Mountain Dew everywhere.
Oh my god.
Like they wanted people, if they wanted to drink water, they said, "Okay, I want you to empty out the Mountain Dew can and put water in it." It was that aggressive.
It's like people who don't know how to be creative shouldn't make creative decisions.
Yeah.
You just need to get that Mountain Dew in front of them, in front of the cameras, please.
Now I know about the Mountain Dew show. Is there any other news, Riddle?
Any other news? The other bit of news I could find out that Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.10 Thrice Upon a Time is finally getting released to theaters. This is a spin-off of the original Evangelion. Is in movie form.
What is Evangelion? Is that an anime?
Evangelion's a very popular anime. It's very famous for having a very weird ending. Like the showrunner was very depressed, and he just wanted to end the series. Now I don't know about himself, but he wanted to end the series. He was just very sad, and the ending made very little sense. Like, did you watch Evangelion, Jake?
Oh yeah, I did. I remember. I feel like I saw. There's probably like 2 different endings. I don't remember which one I saw, but I'm pretty sure. Like, I remember everybody like turning into orange Fanta, so that's what I remember.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird stuff. There's a famous scene which is referenced in Steven Universe where they're around clapping around the main character saying congratulations.
Oh yeah.
That is a famous Evangelion scene that was at the end of the series where everyone failed.
Good job doing your homework, Riddle. You made it tie into the subject and everything.
You're welcome.
So is it? I mean, I've never seen this. Again, I don't anime, which hopefully will change over the course of the podcast and stuff. We'll get there. But I guess is it kind of like Chronicles of Narnia, where everyone just kind of goes to heaven at the end, essentially?
No, the world ends.
Oh, well, that's similar.
Yeah, everyone turns into pee and the world ends.
Yeah.
So why are they making more of this?
Because it was very memorable and marketable, and they maybe to give it a different ending. I have not seen it, so I don't know how the ending will end. Maybe we'll get something other than everyone turns to Fanta and then the world floods, and
maybe it will get sponsored by Mountain Dew, and then they'll turn into Mountain Dew instead.
Exactly, Mountain Dew instead of Fanta.
They did have like 3 movies that they had put on Amazon for a time. Are those the ones going into theaters, or is this a new thing?
This is the fourth. This is the fourth and final.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to wrap up the series, so we'll see how it ends. And how the storyline's going to end? Is Shinji going to not stop being a bitch? Who knows?
I feel like I'm going to go see it and not know what's going on because I didn't watch those Amazon films. I saw the show, then I accidentally watched the recap movies on Netflix, and then stopped interacting with the media.
It might be a little bit confusing then, but I'm sure you're going to have the same essence. It's like watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and then the original Full Metal Alchemist anime. It's similar characters, just different settings.
I think that's actually the order that I watched those in. Although I don't think I finished watching the original. I watched the first episode and was like, what?
Yep. People should give the original a try. It is definitely a different anime. It's less polished. It's less pretty, but I enjoy it quite a bit.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to our main point of discussion, which is Steven Universe.
Steven Universe.
Yeah, Steven.
You've been living under the rock, Steven Universe.
Speaking of anime.
Speaking of anime, we're going to talk about Steven Universe. Oh, is Avatar The Last Airbender an anime? I have to check. No, I'm just...
The Simpsons is anime if you think about it hard enough.
I guess this depends on,
your definition of anime.
What qualifies as an anime. I qualify it via, if it was, made in Japan or with the help of a Japanese studio. I don't think Steven Universe would count in that.
It's definitely anime inspired.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot generally how Western stuff works for cartoons, if they want to do frame by frame, is they'll outsource the actual animation to different countries because it's cheaper. So, like, even Kim Possible was made in Malaysia, like, the actual animation and stuff. So it's also about, you know, American sensibilities and their sense of humor and, like, who is driving the story and who's producing it at the end of the day. That's why Avatar isn't really considered an anime, even though it looks and talks and was made not in Americas, because, you know, some white old Americans made it, so...
It was voice acted in Canada.
Voice acted in Canada?
I think it was...
That's new.
No, I think it was voice acted... That was Pony Brittle.
Okay, sorry. I always think everything is in Canada.
No, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes for, like, they'll have the voice actors in Canada, or same thing, they'll have the actual grunt work done in Canada. No, grunt work done in Canada because it is cheaper. So, like, that's why all of Friendship is Magic, like, a lot of the creative decisions were done in Canada because that is where the studio where Hasbro hired to make the show is, and that's why they're all Canadian actresses. And fun fact, Tara Strong is in it because she has dual citizenship, so she can be hired for both Canadian and American shows.
Oh, I didn't know
Now,
that.
you know...
Are you going to get dual citizenship?
To Canada?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, with the things that are going on right now, are you thinking about, in case you need to get some work up there?
I don't know. I don't know how that process works. I guess I gotta go marry a Canadian BRB.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I just plan to work independently until someone, Senpai Disney, notices me.
Save me.
Save me. So anyway, so Jake, I'm gonna just rely on you for Steven Universe discussion. So
Yeah.
I guess to start off the thing with this episode discussion with, can you describe Steven Universe to people who have never seen Steven Universe but might want to watch it or something like that? Like, and also, what is the big deal?
Oh my god, describe Steven Universe. I mean, Steven Universe was one of the 2010 era Cartoon Network shows. It was created by Rebecca Sugar, and it's essentially supposed to be about this, like, young teenage boy that is half human, half gem, and gems are an alien species that are comprised of rocks. And the series is about him, like, both kind of learning more about himself and also the world around him. And I remember the thesis of the show was supposed to be that these alien creatures that are part of Steven's family enjoy being part of his slice of life as much as they do being alien war criminals. I'm gonna say war criminals.
Protectors of the Earth.
Or protectors of the Earth. Oh my god.
And kind of just hiding out too.
Yeah, I mean, like, this show takes place post a really, like, an intergalactic war. And then I guess the war kind of, like, gets wrapped up near the end of the original series.
But it's like a civil war, right? It's not between Earth and the aliens.
Yeah, it was like a gem civil war about how we want to be free, and we also want to protect this planet. And Homeworld was like, no, stop. And all the stuff with Rose and Pink Diamond, and there's twists and turns, and oh boy, the show is a lot. But I think one of the things that stuck out the most to people about the show was it was a pretty show. It had good characters and plenty of good writing moments, and did all this with most of the cast being queer. Like, there's lesbians in the show, very overtly, even if they don't say it out loud. They
had to get around the censors somehow.
Yeah, the gender non-conforming stuff in it. Rather, it was like Steven kind of not really caring about gender roles, or like the gems kind of breaking what is typically expected of female characters on screen. They gave other kinds of marginalized groups spotlight, but as much as they could, it seemed, because behind the scenes, Cartoon Network and the censors and all that were really, like, eating away at, like, the show's production, constantly asking for changes or not letting them do things. I think the show's original run kind of, like, ended up...
it suffered from it, the White Diamond arc.
Yeah.
Really got...
Like, Rebecca Sugar really wanted that wedding in there, and they were like, all right, but if we do this, we might not be able to order another season. And the crew was like, we're fine with that. Better to have it there than not at all. Yeah, I implore them.
And then they got another season anyway, right?
And then they got a movie, and then they got a spin-off series because at least this is what I heard. Cartoon Network felt that like there is no point of having a movie if there's nothing afterwards to advertise. So Steven Universe Future was ordered. And that was a completely new story. This was after Cartoon Network basically made them wrap up the whole story that they had planned for Steven Universe. So they had to make a whole new story, and they decided to focus on Steven in the miniseries.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job for as little time they had to prepare.
Yeah.
I guess, like, how did they come to terms to make a movie if they were just gonna cut the show off anyway?
I don't know. I know that, like, I think... I would need sources for this, but I think something about a movie must have always been like considered in the cards. They knew that they were gonna have a movie for a bit, though. I think like because as far as I remember, Mr. Greg episode was them practicing doing a musical episode because they knew that if they were to do a movie, they'd want it to be a musical. And I remember that from like the Steven Universe podcast. So they must have known that for a bit because that episode came out quite a bit before the movie was ready.
Right. Speaking of movie, what is the best gem? Is it Spinel?
No, sadly. To me, my favorite gem is Amethyst. Spinel is a close second, though. But I think I like Spinel because of her aesthetic and her design and what you could do animation-wise with her. But Amethyst...
The rubber hose animation.
Yeah! But Amethyst as a character,
fun.
I loved that as she grew over the course of the show, she kind of went from being the loud, rambunctious, kind of irresponsible older sister to Steven to still being loud and rambunctious, but much more responsible, much more aware of Steven's well-being and mental health, and was even the first gem to be like, I'm gonna stop trauma dumping on you right now.
Like the kindergarten episode was very big.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, like how gems are formed, they are formed literally out of the ground like rocks, and they are terraformed in a way from the resources of a given planet. And this is why the gems are bad, is because they go around the universe, colonizing worlds and using it to make more gems.
Which, like organic life, if there is organic life on a planet that they are invading, it does not survive the invasion.
Gets slurped up.
Yeah. Basically, because they use like the life force on planets to create gems sometimes. So like that kindergarten that was used to make a ton of gems, it's dead, and there's no repairing it. It's just dead.
As far as like plants and shit that can grow there, right?
Like the soil is.
Yeah.
You get turned into Nevada.
Yeah, pretty much. I think they even had an episode where like the character Peridot, Peridot has a really good arc in Steven Universe.
Peridot's my favorite.
Yeah, I can see why. But
yeah, I was gonna be like, she's my favorite too.
Peridot tries to fix
Claude.
the kindergarten, or at least try to like grow plants there, and like, oh well, maybe like you just need like a green thumb or whatever, and they come back the next day and all the plants are dead because the soil there's nothing to sustain that stuff. In fact, it kind of died fast, so I'm thinking that like it's not just dead, it's like anti-life.
You get the slurp up the life.
I was gonna make a joke, but I will refrain joke just because of timing. But all right.
You're free to tell jokes.
No, my joke was gonna be like, oh, it's sucked up life, just like in the government.
Oh no.
I didn't want to, make the mood down, but it doesn't matter anyway, I guess. And this, as far as the LGBTQ stuff, this was at a time where studios weren't really doing that. They were, even like Disney was afraid to touch that kind of stuff because they were afraid about international distribution and getting banned from specific countries by doing that stuff. So, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Jake?
Yeah, bro. Pretty much. Because like back then, there was like, if there was anything in terms of representation back then, it was like literal breadcrumbs. And it was the kind of stuff where people had to constantly read into subtext, and subtext is really easy for people to just dismiss. And that kind of sucked for a lot of LGBT fans growing up. I think before Steven Universe, Rebecca Sugar was working on like Adventure Time, and was putting breadcrumbs of stuff with Marceline and Bubblegum, and we all read it. It was all there, but like it was still subtle enough to where like it could be denied, and we know it was because behind the scenes they just weren't allowed to do that stuff. Steven Universe comes along and is fighting so hard behind the scenes just to like be like, hey, this is fine. Literally, if we just air this, it'll be fine. And you know what? It was fine. Like the most that like happened in terms of suffering was that the show lost funding, but like the Steven Universe being able to do the stuff that it did made other shows and other companies be more brave about their forms of representation. We got I remember it was like a slow trickle of so they were starting to show more like queer parents on screen, and then they were letting side characters be queer and have queer stories. And I feel like
we have Amphibia.
Yeah, I mean, we got to the point where we have like Amphibia and the Owl House, especially the Owl House, because they have an on-screen lesbian couple that is the main character and another one of the main characters, side characters, and they on screen will be like girlfriend, and they'll kiss and a hug and all that. They'll go on dates, and we would not have something like that at all if it weren't for shows like Steven Universe. Steven Universe, I would say, you kind of try to put it like if you try to stack Steven Universe up to queer representation now, of course it's gonna fall flat because it's one of the first. Whenever they wanted to do something, they probably were fighting tooth and nail to even get that little bit in. And now those barriers are not as prevalent. Still exist, but not as prevalent.
Yeah, I think between just the rise and the more vocal, creators that are saying like, hey, what's wrong with being gay, as well as companies, facing public consequences for not being inclusive. So for those who don't know, Disney got a really big backlash I think a month ago, probably a month or two ago, because they, secretly supported a governor who was trying to pass legislation that meant that, I think from my understanding, they couldn't talk about, gay and lesbian relationships in schools.
Oh, yeah, it was a
that was Florida. Yeah, that's Florida.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's Florida.
Help me.
And I mean, it's nice. I mean, social media is nice in the way that, like, Disney could have just done that and no one would have known the difference, and or they, there might not have been as big of a vocal backlashing where they were forced to do something. And so now, especially in a company like Disney where, a good, I would say like 30 to, 50% of people that work for the company are, fall under the LGBT plus spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Flag. It's a lot of letters. I'm sorry.
LGBTQIA2+.
Yeah, it ends up isolating their employees, and it makes them feel like they don't work in a safe environment because regardless of your religious reviews, people can do what they want. And I know, like the old justification for all this was, when we ship things to other countries, and other countries like China aren't as supportive as same-sex relationships, then we'll get banned and blocked. And, the consensus is like, I think the representation and the well-being of your employees is more important than making sure your product is distributed in every country ever. So, like, now I think, for those who haven't seen Lightyear, we talked about Lightyear the last show, but there was a lesbian kiss in Lightyear, and it was very, very subtle, like something you probably wouldn't even have noticed.
It was a 1 second scene.
It was like literally like a peck. It was a little peck.
Yeah.
No tug, no hand holding.
And I think their attitude, and it was originally removed because of, Disney being afraid of international distribution and China being mad at them. But now
did you see pictures on Twitter of southern states like fast forwarding through that one scene?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I did. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, so it's being censored in our country, not just in China.
It's so funny because it's a scene that small, so insignificant, and you need to fast forward through it. Literally, kids will blink and not see it.
Oh no. There was a really funny Daily Show segment they did years and years ago where they had a gay couple walk around the Mormon church in Salt Lake City, and the Mormon church called the cops on them, And they explained that, like, oh, we don't want any public displays of affection. And they were just like, we were holding hands. And then the Daily Show, to troll them, sent like a fake straight couple, like, making out all over the church. And the church didn't do anything. So just to call out on their hypocrisy. So, similar thing, I guess. But,
Yep, it's not about what they say. They just want to remove you from the public discourse. It's never genuine, whatever these people say.
It has me thinking back on, like, I remember reading this. I think this was both in the art book and also in the Steven Universe podcast, that the whole wedding thing, that was one of the things they had to fight the hardest for. Because Cartoon Network kept saying, Cartoon Network wouldn't say that it was because it was a gay wedding that they couldn't have it in the show. They kept making different kinds of excuses. First it was, oh, it's too boring for the demographic. Most of the people who watch the show are like boys, and boys don't like seeing weddings. And then Rebecca was like, well, that doesn't make sense because there's a ton of boy shows that have special episodes with a wedding in it, so it's not that. He's like, oh, well, still a wedding would be kind of boring. He's like, all right, well, what if we attach it to a big plot point? And then it was just a back and forth till eventually Cartoon Network let up and just like, okay, fine, you can have it. But, like, warning you, we were not sure how your show will last afterwards. And it's like, that. Apparently that's the kind of, like, censorship that they were getting behind the scenes whenever something was, like, given a note because it had something gay in it. Cartoon Network wouldn't say it was because it was gay explicitly all the time. Sometimes they would kind of make up a reason that didn't make sense. And Rebecca and the crew either had to just kind of be like, okay, fine, or fight it and be like, what are you talking about? Do we need to change this?
Yep. So it's pretty much coming from the execs. It's not even just the random mother calls. It's probably just the execs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was definitely execs and what's that? Is it SMP? Standards and practices.
Standards and practices.
Yeah.
So for those playing at home, standards and practices, I think is a separate entity within companies, but essentially you get notes from standards and practices that they want to negate kids replicating things that they see in TV, which is kind of the gist of it. But the reality is it's just a little bit of censorship for, like, bullshitty reasons. Like, I think Alex Hirsch was talking about Gravity Falls stuff, and they, like, Seuss was in a fursuit, and they were just like, you can't have him in a fursuit because it will remind the public of furries. And I'm just like... But you're Disney, you hire people to be in fursuits.
You made them furries.
Have you guys seen that Alex Hirsch tweet about, like, thousands of emails that he has about, like, his interactions with SMP, and one of them was that, like, some dog had a shirt that said Chub Pup, and they're like, we can't have this in because Chub is a little bit too inappropriate, kind of sexual, and Alex was like, it's a dog. It's a literal puppy.
That's kind of sus if the S&P is thinking that's sexual.
Yeah, no, like,
what are they thinking?
My brain would never even go there, so the fact that theirs did, it's like, the chubby puppy, the chub part of that is inappropriate to you. What are you be looking at?
Let me look at your internet history really quick.
Yeah, it's people just being overconscious and making dumb decisions because they're trying to justify their overconscious behavior. And a lot of the times these things, like, won't, like, even if there was no standards and practices, a lot of times the public wouldn't notice. Like, I don't think anyone would say anything about the chub puppy kind of thing, but, I think it's just mostly to mitigate risk if something does go viral and it looks bad on the company, and be like, oh, they put this thing looks like a penis, they put it in the show, and, to catch kind of that stuff, as well as the only reason it really should be used is to make sure kids aren't replicating things by mitigating stuff that kids could replicate, essentially. So, like, we're not gonna show you how to make a bomb on, Steven Universe next episode. So
burn people.
We're gonna teach you how to shatter gems, though.
Yeah, commit planetary genocide. That's something the kids can imitate.
So, I guess, Jake, to kind of keep the conversation going, for those who don't know, this was a big deal, right? The show?
Mm-hmm.
Like, in what ways besides the representation?
I guess besides the representation...
like, what else made it a good show?
Did you like the mystery aspects of it, where Sugar will put down clues, but not present you with an entire puzzle?
Oh, yeah.
Or even a mystery to look for? So, early in the series, they show Garnet having 2 gems, but all the other gems only have one.
Yeah.
And like it gives you the question like, why does she have two? But you're not really presented with the question. And then at the end of the series, like it shows, oh, she's actually a fusion.
If I remember correctly, the way the show was kind of being built was because it's all from Steven's perspective. You're supposed to be there with him. He's in every single episode. Anything that you learn about, he's learning about at the same time.
Right.
They kind of had it be like, it's like you're growing up. Steven's growing up. He's seeing these things, not exactly getting them at first, but slowly as he's growing older and getting more context, he's getting them. And you're supposed to be getting them at the same time as him. So, like, the fusion thing, Steven always probably noticed that Garnet had two gems, and it only started making sense to him in that episode where
why
she refuses, and it's like, oh, you're a fusion? What? Or a little bit less popular of... Nah. If there's people watching this, I don't want to spoil that for them, but I mean, they probably know.
You did already spoil the Garnet thing. I was just like, guys.
Well, like that happens in season.
That's
1.
season 1, okay.
Like the spoiler I was thinking about was one that changes the context of the entire show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess if you want to look it up, but later. But yes, continue. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll stop talking.
But,
I'm sorry, Twilight Sparkle got her wings. Spoilers.
No, it's Twilight Sparkle on her wings. The show's ruined. Oh! No. But,
you came from the Brony area, too, before you went to Steven Universe, right?
Oh, yeah. I was literally... Steven Universe was what I went to right after MLP. Like, I was, like, in middle school. I really, really loved My Little Pony. All the stuff that I drew was inspired or like looked like either MLP or Equestria Girls. And I remember that used to be like a little bit annoying to my parents because they're like, you draw animals all the time. How come you don't draw any humans? I'm like, I don't know how. Because everything was based off of My Little Pony.
But I like the ponies, Mom.
And then I started watching Steven Universe and... Okay, wait. Actually, how I got introduced to Steven Universe is very interesting because I feel like most people had the same experience where they were advertising Steven Universe really obnoxiously on Cartoon Network, but like, because they had these like really awful ads of Steven screaming and the Cookie Cat. And but I was still like a kid, so it was like, oh, that still looks interesting. The episode that I remember them premiering with is Cat Fingers, which is a horror episode. And I remember watching that as a kid and being like, this sucks. Like, this is actually a really bad show. And I remember being mad and outwardly being like, I don't like this show. And this was before it became popular to even hate Steven Universe. It just had that bad of like an intro. But that's not supposed to be the first episode. The first episode is Gem Glow, but they didn't premiere with that. So I like was ignoring the show for a long while until eventually I think I was like trying to find...
You thought it was like another Fanboy and Chum Chum.
Yeah, no, it really felt like that. Especially I burned so much with some Nicktoon shows during that era. I was like, I'm not doing this. But then I forgot how I fell into this, but I think I discovered like Kim Cartoon or Kiss Cartoon, that website, and Steven Universe was on there. So I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything right now. I might as well like watch some of these episodes. And I watched the full first half of the first season in order. And once I reached Water Gem, I was like, oh no, this show's really good. And
let's go.
I caught up till I think a Steven Bomb was happening on TV, and that was the Steven Bomb that had Jailbreak and The Return, and I watched that live.
Define Steven Bomb, by the way.
Oh yeah, Steven Bomb. A Steven Bomb was this thing where Cartoon Network would sometimes premiere episodes of shows. Like one episode a day for a whole week. And for Steven Universe, they called them Steven Bombs. And I think this was the second Steven Bomb, because the first one had the Water Gem episode and such, where they revealed Lapis Lazuli. But this one was where they had The Return and Jailbreak, which is the episode where they introduce Jasper. We get to see Peridot IRL, quote unquote. Lapis returns, and Garnet gets poofed, and then we discover that she's a fusion. All that stuff happens at the end of this like bomb, and it was the craziest moment ever, because imagine, I'm trying to remember how old I must have been, but like I'm like a baby JakeNeutron on TV. I'm watching TV. I haven't seen any queer anything on television. And then not only does the show drop the fact that Garnet is made of two lesbians and they kiss on screen and then like giggle and fuse, and then they have a song right afterwards talking about their relationship, and it's one of the best songs in the show. That was one of the craziest moments I ever experienced. And that's when I knew I was a Steven Universe fan for life.
Was your parents watching with you? Because you're still probably a small child.
I don't think so. I think I was watching it alone in our living room, and my parents were probably like either in their room or off at work.
Would they have let you watch that?
Oh yeah, no, they at that. I'm pretty sure at that point, I was out about being gay, and they knew about it. So they weren't that concerned about that stuff. Although it was, I do remember it was like not the rest of my family is kind of like a little spotty in terms of whether they're homophobic or not. And I think I remember once watching, I was watching the Coach Steven episode, and my aunt was there, and the fusion scene happened with, like, Garnet and Amethyst. I remember my aunt being like, oh my god, is this allowed on television? They're gyrating.
Yep. Thanks, Mom.
I mean, they were gyrating, to be fair.
They were gyrating, and then the Amethyst jumps into, like, Garnet's crotch, and that's just part of the fusion dance. That's just really funny.
Mom, come and get the worst moment during anime.
That did happen once with Adventure Time, though.
Oh, no.
My mom walked in while I was watching Adventure Time, and I think it was an episode where they were in a dungeon, and my mom walked in and was like, oh, what's this cute show you're watching? And I'm like, oh, I'm watching Adventure Time, and just as, like, I finished saying that, like, this angel character turns into this, like, demon with a really terrifying face and starts screeching at Finn, and my mom goes, really, Jake? I didn't do it. It's the show.
You didn't see the setup. There's context behind it.
I swear. And then she didn't let me. I wasn't allowed to watch Adventure Time in her room anymore. She didn't stop me from watching it altogether. She just said I couldn't watch it in her room.
Oh.
Please don't scar me, Jake. I just want to watch my soaps in peace. I guess. When did the show end? Remind me. And then, like, how is the fandom adapted to not having a active show? Or is it still active? And, like, I have no idea how that scene is like. So tell me about your secrets.
Oh, true. When did the show end? I'm pretty sure. Well, the show ended in a weird state because Cartoon Network didn't tell people that it was the finale. So, like, it was just supposed to be the finale for that season of that arc. It was when they were doing the whole Diamonds Homeworld arc. It was a 44-minute special, and everyone's like, this feels like the end of the show, but they haven't said if it's ended or not. And then they went on hiatus for a really long while, and then they announced the movie at like a convention, and then I think the movie aired September 2019, right? I think it was before the pandemic.
Before the world ended.
And then Steven Universe Future was announced, I think, the year after. And that ended in 2021, I think? No, 2022, because it was still at the beginning of the pandemic, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, we were like around 2020. And since then, we've been getting Steven Universe content, but very, very small nuggets. They have three games. The first one was for apps. The second one was for consoles. And the third one was also for apps, specifically like the Apple Arcade thing that Apple's been doing. But they also released that onto consoles as well. And that just recently got an update like a week ago.
Okay, so it's the Warner the multiverse Smash thing that Warner Brothers is doing?
No, I think that's different. But
oh, okay.
That I guess that would count as also this. They obviously Warner still likes Steven Universe to some degree and knows that people like it because they put them in multiverses. Which was not something I was expecting. I did not think that Steven Universe was like I didn't know that Warner Brothers would want to put Steven Universe next to Bugs Bunny, but it makes sense. In terms of the fandom, I mean, like, they're there, but I don't think the scene of making content based off that show is as big anymore. I think I sometimes occasionally see like an animatic or something, but honestly,
they're like bronies. They went to hibernation.
Yeah, and I mean, like the fan creation scene of Steven Universe was never as big as something like MLP, but it like once Future ended.
They had their own conventions, right? Though.
Yeah, I think they did have Beach City Con and I think something else.
Yeah.
Which I applied to and they never got back to me.
I never got to go to any of
Steven
them.
Universe. Yeah, I guess comparatively, if people don't know what we're talking about, the My Little Pony scene back in its high point had and still has multiple conventions just about the My Little Pony show. So compared to Steven Universe, there was like one Steven Universe con, but I guess the pony stuff was much more in demand zeitgeist wise than Steven Universe. I guess like it's still really popular, but I think just the nature of the ponies being fun to think about conceptually as like being a good show kind of worked within its favor from my understanding.
Yeah, and like, well, Steven Universe did have like a massive impact. I'm thinking about the kind of people that like Steven Universe appealed to, and I feel like that was like a little bit more niche than what MLP had going for it. MLP, because it was like a cute little general audience pastel show that really wasn't trying to rock the boat at all. It was just really good. That like blew up a ton. Meanwhile, Steven Universe was just kind of one of Cartoon Network's shows. It was impactful enough to where people wanted to make like little clowns based off of it. Because I'm trying to think if there are any other Cartoon Network shows that like had that specifically. I think the only other kind of cartoon that I could think of that would match Steven Universe in that way would be maybe Adventure Time, but I don't know enough about Adventure Time to know if there was any cons about Adventure Time. But either way.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's not a specific con for that, but you do see a lot of people cosplaying as those characters. Like even when I do general comic conventions, there's still people cosplaying as Kim Possible and Chigo, you know. So it kind of has that vibe where people come out if there's something that they want to wear a costume to, but there's not an event specifically based around that media.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
And then there's a whole entire other side of the discussion around Steven Universe, which was towards the second half of that show's existence. Because Steven Universe got so popular, you know how anything that gets really popular gets that counter critique fandom to it.
Mm-hmm.
And Steven Universe's counter critique fandom, or I forgot. I think they were called like Steven SU Crits or something.
Mm-hmm.
That scene was kind of nuts, and there are a few videos that had such an impact that whenever Steven Universe is brought up, people will start talking about those same points ad nauseum, even if it's not related to the conversation. I mean, there's people who will unironically just like hate on Steven Universe despite having never watched it or really knowing anything about it, and when they express the reasons why they don't like the show, they show that they don't know anything about the show.
Yeah, Steven Universe was one of the big early shows that entered in like the political discourse, and like this, and people pointing out to Steven Universe being like the fall of the world, and that's like when Gamergate was also flaring up as well, so they all got kind of tied together. It was kind of nutso back then, even though people completely ignore that forever. People have been fighting for progressive things inside cartoons. Just the censors were like just more powerful. Like Hey Arnold has some pretty progressive themes and tones, but like the people had to fight tooth and nail to just get those things in there. Just mentioned.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw out there, like as a content creator that specializes not only in my own animations and stuff, but also critique. It's frustrating when people are just regurgitating information that is from a content creator that they like that has a lot of views versus being more critical about it in their own right, and also realizing that they might have a slightly different opinion. Like something that I hear it being brought up a lot is kind of the general thesis of Steven Universe being like, you know, work with your family, and you know you can salvage your family relationships if you work hard because they're important and stuff like that. And I get the understanding that, like, out of context, that can be a really toxic message about how, you know, you need to not cut people off and make it work because they're a family, quote unquote. But I guess at the same time, I don't think there's a difference. There's a distance between artist intent, and I don't think Rebecca Sugar meant to not cut people off, essentially.
Yeah, there's no need to attribute malice to what's essentially
I think,
a good message.
One of
Trying to
the
be a good
things that
message.
stood out to me the most when it comes to conversation about Steven Universe is the joke about that Steven forgave stand-ins for Hitler. Like that has been like that's the one of the things I hear the most. But when you actually watch the show, and if you actually know history, that is very insulting to say. It's like ignoring the fact that the show was created by someone who is Jewish, and that's just a disgusting thing to imply that a Jewish creator would even try to imply that. The gems are not people, like they're not humans like us, and a lot of the things that they try to attribute to because they'll be like, okay, well, it's space imperialism, so it always has to be space Nazis. And no, Nazis were way more like insidious than this. The whole entire thing about like that kind of stuff is, well, here on Earth, when that stuff happened, people were convincing other people to be discriminatory and racist and committing all these atrocities to try and mold this world into a twisted thing only for them. The gems just existed like that. Like they are, yeah, they're like they were implied to be like technology that was just operating.
So you subscribe to the automaton thing?
Yeah, but because like
it's kind of like the
that's
Grey
like
Goo.
in the text. It's even in like the art book, they describe how Homeworld was supposed to be represented, but they just didn't have time to put it in. That this is a society that is exists completely devoid of anything that us humans have. Like while us humans would have like we have walkways and roads and traffic lights just to make sure that everyone has a way to get to and from places. These gems literally just have transport tubes that take them to their specific jobs and don't even have homes. If anything, they just kind of get put into storage when they're not in use. They are literally electronics. And so when even though it's still bad, the kind of stuff that they were doing, it was kind of to a degree of they don't really have a point of reference to be able to tell what would be better, while people on Earth definitely did and purposefully ignored it because they just don't like other people.
Right. Like you wouldn't attribute a shark to being evil just because it bit your leg. It wants to eat food. You can hate the shark, but you can't just say it's trying to murder.
And
it's just
even the show itself, in having that be part of its text, still doesn't go, well, you should just kind of like let that happen. The show is very consistent about saying that, no, you should be able to stand up for yourself. Sometimes you do have to fight for things to change. Just because that's how the way things were doesn't mean that's the way things should be. That's why how Steven and his existence is in complete opposition to whatever White Diamond had going on.
Yep. Direct it. You should still engage in direct action, but you should try to work within your means
and like,
if
I
you
know
can.
Another thing about the show and its like messaging that people kind of like they kind of only semi like seem to talk about is the whole entire thing about people feel like the diamonds should have died at the end because they committed all these atrocities. And I understand why they feel that way. They also tend to say that without considering the real world consequences of what that would cause. Like, people are still like, how come the diamonds are still there and existing? How come Steven hasn't shattered them? And it's like, well, the kind of personal justice kind of way I can understand that. But when you think about if the diamonds were shattered, that would cause a power vacuum that other gems would attempt to try and utilize, which in the games that does happen. When the diamonds are out of power, there's these garnets that try to take power back, and that ultimately fails. But then there's also the fact of that the diamonds have such a power because they're like the god beings of the species, that them being removed means that suddenly there is multiple kinds of ailments that gems have that cannot be healed because the only people that could heal them were diamonds. Like gems that were shattered or gems that were cracked or et cetera, et cetera. So like,
yep, the victory is in changing the culture, not just beating up the big bad.
yeah, and without the diamonds, a lot of that healing would be way, way harder. And even though nobody has to like those diamonds, Steven especially does not need to like the diamonds.
Does he not like the diamonds in the text? He's just like, they're annoying and they're too clingy.
Yeah, but I think people get kind of wrapped up in still trying to attribute the diamonds to real world political figures. That like, while the diamonds dying would like you think about that, it's like, oh no, that's that would complicate things way too much for people. They're diamonds. They're aliens. They have their species works completely differently. That same thing is not going to be able to match up to real life political figures throughout history, to where maybe some I'm pretty sure
it could have made things worse. Even.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some historical figures that their death did actually lead to things getting better because they had such a grip on things. But
no, if you try to remove a political leader and then you don't have a plan afterwards, you just create anarchy.
And that's literally a thing that Steven Universe talks about too with bismuth. I feel like the show doesn't really go into depth with it and just kind of says, but that would be wrong because we're the crystal gems, and bismuth is what the hell are you talking about? I'm a crystal gem too, and et cetera, et cetera. But if the show probably could have mentioned, hey, what happens after we kill them? Well, everyone's free, but then everyone's free, but not everyone thinks like us. There's still people who really, really look up to the diamonds, and now they're dead. And the diamonds are probably the only people that would have been able to change their minds, if at all.
They're trying to hint at the cycle of hate. You remove someone's leader, and then someone comes after you. You become the Goblin King. There's a thing in Goblin lore is if the way to become the king is by killing the king. Therefore, if someone else wants to become the king, then they have to get rid of you. And it just creates this never-ending cycle.
Yeah, and but no one really ever talks about that side of the discussion of the way Steven Universe discusses those kind of things, because it's much funnier and it feels more like a gotcha to say that Steven forgave Hitler, and that's where it ends.
They just want to be It's just trying to be hyperbolic. That's all it is.
It's people on the internet who are into art might not have the best social skills and need to regurgitate stuff they hear on the internet. Imagine that. But yeah, I just wanted to point out too, I get, just for a more PC version of this, I do get similar discussion as far as the gargoyles with Hunchback of Notre Dame and how annoying and shitty they are. And I get that, and they do clash with the tone a lot for the movie, because the movie is a super serious movie for the most part. But are they the worst thing that's ever existed in the history of cinema? No. If you're a kid and don't know any better,
that would be really... Jar Jar.
Yeah. I was gonna be someone's gonna make a Jar Jar joke. If you're a kid who doesn't know any better, you'll probably be fine. And I think that's something people forget, is if children are consuming a lot of this stuff, they don't have a basis as far as what is a annoying character. I think, take a poll as far as people who don't hate Jar Jar, and I bet they were children when the prequels came out, as far as just general exposure to that. The people who mostly were vocal about Jar Jar at the time were the adult critics.
It's adults,
who were just
Mm-hmm.
So, it's dumb, and I think that's one of the reasons, this is a little bit side tangent, but one of the reasons one of the reasons the Star Wars prequels have dated so well is because the people who were, they are shitty films, fundamentally, and constructively, but the people that were introduced to them were children and don't have as good as a critical understanding of if good or bad movies in comparison. So, and then as far as the bad plot points and just the general, structurally bad parts of the prequels, you have emotional ways to fix those, the Clone Wars series, which I haven't seen, but I've heard is really good. And then, ways to fix it within the structure of the show by, subsequent material. And the same thing with Rogue One and Star Wars, too, because everyone and their mother would complain about how the Death Star had one hole where, it would blow up. It isn't that convenient. And, I saw it 5,000 times growing up, but they actually, incorporated that as a plot point and a dramatic plot point. And I think that helped. I think that kind of solved the problem for everyone and also made a good story out of, that. So, I think there's ways to fix your canon. You just gotta
release a pod racing game.
Yeah, take some space and think about how how to address the story emotionally, but also dramatically. So anyway, there's my soapbox. Any other points, Jake, you want to bring up about Steven Universe that you can think of?
One more thing.
Okay.
And I think this is
only one.
This is still in relation to like the whole other side of SU reaction, which was the way people discuss art and animation in regards to Steven Universe is crazy to me. But it also kind of made sense because
the Cal Arts discourse.
Yeah, and I think it comes from a lot that like there are a lot of people who love animation, but don't really know the ins and outs of how it's made and why certain things are probably really high fidelity and some other things have to cut corners. And they're highly critical of that kind of stuff. Sometimes to a degree where it's almost unfair. And sometimes where it's totally fair, but like, could have said it better.
You do animation too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you know the struggle of if you try to make something complicated, it's going to be hell to make that thing move.
Oh yeah, I know that like the pilot for Steven Universe has like a really detailed art style, which is beautiful, but it was not going to be viable for a Cartoon Network show. You look at the shows on Cartoon Network, most of them have really simple flat styles because it's easier to draw, easier to be ordered, and you don't have to get so many revisions.
Some shows don't have like the budget of like a Death Note, which costed like somewhere in the ballpark of like $10 million per episode to animate.
Even with the simple styles of a lot of these Cartoon Network shows, they still have errors.
The budgets are still huge. Yeah.
And they still have errors and some bugs that show up that like they kind of leave in because it's still expensive to get fixed. And I would not know the specifics for why every single kind of error might happen or some inconsistencies. I remember hearing that like Steven Universe was a little weird in the way that they went about animation because the storyboards were, depending on what studio was working on an episode, the animators would literally like trace off of the storyboards as like a really hard and fast guide, which means if the storyboard artists weren't super on model, nor would the animation, which is strange because storyboards don't have to be on model. And or at least they usually don't have to be on model.
Yeah, that was just a studio goof.
Yeah, and Steven Universe kind of would get criticism for that. To me, it's like a nitpick because like if you're really into the show, it's not really going to matter that on one episode Steven's nose is slightly lower than it is on another. But it was something that was brought up a ton to the degree where people started just making stuff up about the production of Steven Universe. I feel like we all might know of a particular video made by a particular person that tried to imply that
I know this one.
Yeah, it's infamous. Steven
Universe
starts
with an E. Yeah.
Yeah. What was I saying? Oh, but they were implying that Steven Universe doesn't have model sheets. That all their storyboards are like pencil scratches or made in paint, like Windows Paint. They were trying to imply that, not even imply, they just outright said that they're pretty sure that the model sheets that they used for the show are based off of fan art because like they saw fan vectors that were actually traced from the model sheets that were officially released by the Crewniverse. It was
what?
I mean, that video had a lot of problems, but that part made me mad because like
you can't make a show if you don't have model sheets.
Yeah, how do you think that they make this stuff? How are any of the animators gonna know what to do if they don't have model sheets? How is that possible? And how could
you just programmed to know?
That video,
you just gotta know.
And I was just wondering, like, how did this video get like made? And this person pushed it out and couldn't do like a simple search to find out that like the crew posts the behind the scenes stuff from like years ago.
But it's not clickbaity if it's not dramatic.
You gotta be a reactionary, right, man.
But it was so nuts because I remember watching like the work in progress preview of it and be like, oh yeah, they kind of got some points, and then like they got to that and I realized, oh no, they don't know what they're talking about. oh god, and people are going to stick with this. And you know what? That video had such a big impact that whenever I'd like post about Steven Universe for like a year or two, I would get comments under my post regurgitating stuff that video said. Like, even the stuff about them, they don't even have model sheets. Like, what do you mean they don't have model sheets? It's a Cartoon Network show. How would they not have model sheets?
Here are the model sheets.
I think that's just a general problem with distribution of information. Because a lot of times when people put something in I mean, like, I had to deal with this when people were calling me bad names, but, like, you know, there was no source information. I'm just like, okay, but where are you getting your information? It's like, oh, it's this thing. And I'm just like, where did they get their information? I don't know. Like, well, is it possible that they might be lying to get attention? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I just like I like being right about the first I like being right about the first piece of information I consume for the sake of my own ego and, you know, human psychology, stuff like that. So anyway, the moral of this is source your information if you're going to complain about something on the internet.
Like, yeah. And I feel like this kind of like plays into that, like, a lot of the times, because we all know how mimetic stuff works, where you see something that's angering or feeds into like a bias you already have, and you just kind of go with it. You don't check the sources or anything, you just kind of believe it. And that's what happened a lot with Steven Universe, because there's a lot of people who already disliked Steven Universe subtly for political stuff, or maybe overtly, and some people who just didn't like it because it seemed cool to them to not like it. They weren't going to give the show a chance, or maybe they did give the show a chance and it didn't impress them. But there's like a stark difference between being like, I don't know, Steven Universe isn't really for me. I didn't really like the show. I didn't really like the art style. The stories just didn't say anything to me. That's like, you can have that opinion, but when you start going to saying like incorrect things about the crew, saying that the show was like lazily made, or the show was plagiarizing from fans about stuff, or even like what I was talking about earlier about like saying the show had like carelessly implied these things politically when it doesn't, when you pay attention to the show. That Steven Universe is just surrounded by that stuff, and it still is today. And it's so annoying whenever Steven Universe trends, because like at first it will start trending because people are like just sharing fan art, or they're celebrating that like the show had an anniversary, and then the comments will be like half of them are people just hating on the show for those weird incorrect reasons.
It's like people do these things to get attention and feel validated because they lack validation in their regular lives.
Own the libs by dunking on Steven Universe.
Mom, look how important I am. My post about dumping on Steven Universe got like 20 likes.
On Twitter.com.
No.
Go back to the basement, Billy. We'll have pizza rolls later.
But yeah, I mean, like, in general, like, Steven Universe is... It's I think it's the only show that I can think of right now that is in this weird limbo of it is both cool to highly regard it and also completely shit on it. And there's stuff in between. I know I have friends that, like, for most of the reasons that people don't like Steven Universe, that's not the reason why they dislike it. They dislike it for some other more specific reasons. Or they love the show. I know I love the show, but I have a ton of criticisms for it. But, like, the fact that the main two camps of mainstream thoughts on Steven Universe is either, yeah, that show was a bomb, I remember how that made me feel, or ew, that CalArts Beanmouth show, disgusting.
I just my opinion only comes from YouTubers, so I have to agree with them.
Oh, YouTubers.
Only YouTubers can inform my decisions.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's okay if you don't like Steven Universe. It's okay if you don't even like Kim Possible. Just don't tell me. But
Kim Possible,
you know,
Kim Possible's kind of mid. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's mid with her midriff, but you know, it's like, just don't be, you know, a bitch, like, not a bitch about it, but just don't be like rude about it either, and just like be constructive with your criticism, or be constructive with why you don't like it. Like I talked about, like, how consuming art is very aesthetic, as far as like, do you like this kind of vibe? Do you like even the color palette for a show like Steven Universe? And if you don't, like, that's fine, but you have to describe it as like, oh, you know, I just don't like slice of life shows. I like stuff that's more, that, you know, starts with the plot right away, like Avatar, which again is fine, but describe it that way and not just be like, ew, Steven Universe looks gross, I'm not gonna watch it. Like, you have to think about why you don't like these things instead of just saying.
Well, Steven Universe has it all. Like, you know, it's slice of life, and then it has an overarching arc, and then it has a lot of filler because.
Well, I mean, like, shows that start off with, like, a big, structured, story point and introduction as far as the world building versus Steven Universe starts out pretty
Like you
chill.
you got like
and
the
kinda
first
builds up.
5 minutes to get someone hooked on a show, or else they'll just click off.
I think about like I think I don't know if we'll ever get to this point, and this I see this kind of like the way people express their feelings on art and all mediums, but just a lot of people don't know how to differentiate between their opinion and an objective criticism, if that makes sense. Like
Jake,
you'll come across somebody who will say something is objectively bad, and then their opinion is something that literally only affects them.
But Jake, my opinions are facts.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize.
And I mean, and you get a lot of this too when people are becoming artists, but they want to market themselves as more of an artist, and you'll get like objectively your proportions are wrong when you're doing your characters, and then they'll take it super personally. And I'm just like, no, you just don't know how to measure the human body yet, or that's just not how those work. And
It's a style.
like it's go do some homework, but that doesn't that I don't know why I'm rambling, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person because you don't know how to draw a hand or whatever.
That's something that kind of like you practice.
I draw them like a Lego claw.
You draw like a Lego claw?
Yeah, I'll draw Lego claws instead. There, I'll get past my homework assignment.
So true.
This is what my life drawing teacher wanted, right? Lego claw. All right, I think we're good as far as discussion. If you guys are good, so Jake, where can the people find you and your shit if they want to find you and your shit?
See. I am most active on YouTube and Twitter. YouTube is JakeNeutron, no space, and the N is not capitalized. And then Twitter, it's at the JakeNeutron. Because apparently JakeNeutron was taken on Twitter, so I had to put.
And you use a little Jimmy Neutron for your icon right now, right?
Yeah, right now it's Jimmy Neutron because I'm doing that Jimmy Timmy Power Hour Fred and Ain't Funkin' mod. Well,
It won't be there forever, though.
One day I'll convert back.
What a fun use of your free time.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta go back to my roots. Literally, Jimmy Timmy Power Hour is the only reason I'm called JakeNeutron is because I was obsessed with Jimmy Timmy Power Hour when I was like 7. So here we are now.
Return to tradition.
Oh, you might have as bad of a username as I love Kim Possible.
It's very specific names.
Mine's off of a Magic the Gathering card.
So you can find I love Jimmy Neutron a lot.
I love Jimmy. You know what? Hold on. Dare me to change my Twitter name to that right now? Do you think it will let me, or do you think it would be too long?
You can probably put I love JN a lot.
You might have to use Leet Speak.
Jimmy.
Spell
Neutron.
love LUV.
Oh, I misspelled Jimmy Neutron a lot.
Jimmy
it worked.
Okay, well,
It
worked.
worked.
That.
You did it.
I have too much power. Anyway, you got to witness that live, audience. I mean, not really, but, it live in the moment, in our moment. But anyway, if you're new to the podcast, so this is Animation Kimmunication, subset of my main channel called I Love Kim Possible, and I go by KP there, I guess, for some reason. But we upload weekly, usually, unless we have some errors, which happened last week, and Lightyear is supposed to be out last week, but then our guest audio cut like a good chunk of her portion.
Oopsie.
Yeah, it happens. So Jake, I hope your audio doesn't cut out.
It's been recording for an hour and 22 minutes, so as long as it doesn't corrupt.
We'll see. But then when we get the file back, it will just be all silence. And I'm just like, God damn it, not again.
No, it would suck.
But anyway. So we're on YouTube, obviously, and then obviously on all your favorite podcasts provider things and Spotify if you like podcasts, because a lot of people, I'm just like, when I go to conventions, they're just like, I have a podcast too, and they're just like, I don't really like podcasts, and that's fine, but it's here if you want it. So yeah, and go consume podcasts.
We're just having fun doing it. So if you want to listen to it or not, we're cool.
It's just here if you want to, or if you want to learn about how animation works, then there's all fucking 70 episodes that you can can learn about. So, all right. Well, thanks so much, Jake, for being a guest. Thank you. I love JakeNeutron a lot for officially your guest role.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And then I guess if you're listening to podcasts, we have a nice quench. If you're new to the podcast, we have a nice quench of 70 episodes, like we said at the beginning. But if you're old to the podcast, then I guess we'll see you probably next week, 4 p.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Eastern for uploading times, depending on how you consume your podcast. If you want the little YouTube loopy thing or not.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time on Animation Kimmunication.
See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Kimmunication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping the show makes a difference in how people view animation as well as media as a whole, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation and media industry. If you like what you heard, please remember to show support by giving a like, a follow, rating those 5 stars, as well as subscribing to our main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube, and turn your notification on. New episodes of Animation Kimmunication come out every Wednesday at 6 a.m. EST on podcasting platforms and 4 p.m. EST on YouTube. You can follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at the KP Podcast for information about upcoming guests, episodes, and more, as well as our hosts, KP and Riddle, at I Love KP a Lot and at Riddle Lightning on social media. I'm Kat, and thank you for being part of our community. See you next time on Animation Kimmunication.